Good afternoon, students. My name is Gertrude Namando, your tutor for accounting and its didactics. My presentation for today, I haven't really gone question by question, but consider the topics that I'm going to touch today. Those are the topics that you have to go through for your August upcoming examination. My cell phone number is displayed as 08128463112, and then I'll show my emails towards the end. Okay, now if we can, starting with the subject accounting itself, we are starting with the bank reconciliation and an updated cash book. The bank reconciliation statement, if we look at the definition, that is a statement that is used to reconcile the difference between the bank balance as per cash book to its balance as per bank statement. Now, normally that is now prepared by the business for the bank to make corrections. Now, preparing the bank reconciliation statement, I'm going to take you through steps that will help you to do a bank reconciliation statement. Now, in number one, you are going to compare, you have now the bank reconciliation statement and then you have the cash book. Now you will take a pencil and then you are going to compare the two. In step number one, you are comparing the bank column of the debit side of the cash book to the credit column of the bank statement. And then in step number two, you compare the bank column, that is for the credit side of the cash book, to the debit column of the bank statement. And then in number three, as you are comparing, you are ticking the common item. So items that are similar or appearing in both, you give a tick with a pencil. And now, once you are done with the ticking, you are going to prepare a supplementary cash book to update the bank account. Now, in step number four, the unticked item on the bank statement, that is on the debit side, it represents the standing orders, direct debit, bank charges, and it must be entered in the supplementary cash book on the credit side. And then in number five, now all the unticked items on the bank statement, that is on the credit side, it must now be entered in the supplementary cash book that will be on the debit side. And then now you have to prepare a bank reconciliation statement. Upon preparing the bank reconciliation statement, you are now using step number 6. That is now the unticked item in the cash book, of course on the debit side. It represents the credit outstanding deposit and should be entered in the bank reconciliation statement. And then in step 7, all the unticked items in the cash book, that is on the credit side, represent the debit unpresented check and should be entered into the bank reconciliation statement. Now, this was just a short summary, but I want you to read through your accounting didactics module. That will be page 159 to page 163. And then as per requirement, students, it's very important that you buy the NANCOL module 1. I also want you to go through the table of content and then look for bank reconciliation statement to go through. Now the format, when we are using the bank reconciliation statement now, there are two formats that you can use. You can either use the first one that I'm presenting, that will be now the debit balance as per bank statement, and then you put the amount on the debit side, And then you are going to credit all the outstanding deposit. You put them on the credit side. And then you are going to debit all the unpresented check on the debit side. And then now the correct credit balance as per cash book on the credit side. And then you balance of your bank reconciliation statement. Or you can either use the next format, which is the credit balance as per bank statement. You enter the amount on the credit side, and then you credit the outstanding deposit also on the credit side, and then you debit the unpresented check. You put the amount on the debit side, and then the corrected balance as per cash book, and then after that your balance will fall underneath. And when you are doing an updated cash book, that is now the format that you have to follow. You are only using the format as in date, details, folio, and amount. That is for the debit side, and the same apply with the credit side. And very important, if the balance brought down is on the credit side of the cash book, and then that amount is an overdraft. So that is just in short a format and important points that you have to know when you are doing a bank reconciliation statement. And then we move on to the next topic, which is a manufacturing account. Okay, manufacturing, we have to know that when people are manufacturing, they are now changing raw materials into semi-finished goods or into finished goods. And then, of course, they will use now different components, because as we know, this is a stage of production. Now, the cost of raw material, we know in production the people have to buy raw materials. Now, the cost of raw material used, it will be shown in the manufacturing account, and of course, you have to do certain calculations. Let's check through the calculations. How do you now calculate the cost of raw material that is used? The formula, and it's very important that you know your formulas. That is now the opening inventory of raw material, and then you add the purchases of raw material, and then you less your closing inventory of raw material. And then how do you get the prime cost? It's also very important that you know that formula. Is now when you have raw materials, and then you add the direct labor plus the direct expenses. And then the cost of production, the formula, you take the direct material plus direct labor plus direct expenses, and then of course that will give you a prime cost, and then to your prime cost you are now adding all your factory overheads, and then it will give you the cost of production. Now, dear students, it's very important that, if I may say, you have to summarize the formula by heart, because it's only when you know the formula and then you follow that now using figures to give you the calculations. It is now advisable that students must read through page 291 to page 297 on the accounting didactics, just to learn more on the manufacturing account. And please, students, on page 295, that is again accounting didactics, they have given you the format of doing a manufacturing account. And students, for you to know accounting, at least for you to score mark, it's very important for you to memorize the format, and then when you are given figures for the exam, you just follow the format and add the figures as given. And then again, once you have done a manufacturing account, they will ask you to do a trading account based on the figures that you were given. Now, this is a format of doing a trading account for a manufacturing business. Now, you have now the opening inventory of finished goods. Like, it's also very important to just memorize this format. You just write opening inventory of finished goods. You go into the given information, take the amount, put it on the debit side. We have the production cost of goods and then completed. This you will get from the manufacturing account. Once you write this, you go to your manufacturing account, you get the amount, you put it on the debit side. And then we are having the purchase of finished goods carried down. You go into your provided information, you get the amount, you put it on the debit side. And then we are now having the profit and loss account, you put it on the debit side. And then on your credit side of the trading account, we have revenue. As the format is saying revenue, you go to the given information, take the amount, write it on the credit side, and then you go to the given information, you write closing inventory as the format is saying, take the amount, put it on the credit side, and then you balance of your trading account. And sometimes once you are done with the trading account, they will ask you to do an income statement for a manufacturing account. Now the income statement is prepared exactly in the same way as preparing an income statement for the wholesaler or the retailer businesses. And therefore, it's also important that you memorize the format on page 295 of your accounting didactics, just to get the format. Like I said, once you know the format, and then you just put in the figures as they have indicated. And very important, balance of your income statement. And then we move on to the next topic, which is a general ledger. General ledger, it's a T account as we know, where in the general ledger we are now trying to complete the double entry principle. And as we know the double entry principle, for every debit entry, there must be a credit entry. Now, very important, we have 5 groups of account. Now it's very important to know what do we find in the balance sheet account section. That is now where we find the owner's equity account, we find the assets, and then we find the liabilities. And then on the nominal account section, that is now where you find the income and then your expenses. Now, just to summarize it up for you, it's very important also that you now know your rules of accounting. And the rules of accounting there, we know whenever you have assets, it must be debited. Whenever you have an account, it's owner's equity or liability, it must be credited. And then the expenses, the rule says it must be debited, and then the income, it must be credited. It's very important for you to know the accounting principles. As we know the assets and the expenses again, they increases on the debit side and then they decreases on the credit side. And then as for owner's equity, liability and income, they increases on the credit side and then they decreases on the debit side. It's only these rules that will help you to do the general ledger. And if we look at the ledger account, we have 3 types of ledgers. We have the debtors ledger, and that is now a ledger where you used to post the personal account of debtors. And then we have got the creditors ledger. That is now where we used to post the creditors amount. And then lastly, we are having the general ledger as a type of ledger. Now this is where we post individual accounts that are not fitting in the debtors ledger or the creditors ledger. And then such individual account, if I can pinpoint some of them for you, we have sales and return inwards. You open an account in the general ledger for that. We have an account for purchases and return outwards. There is an account for owner's equity, all the assets and all the liabilities. And then also all the income and expenses, we are putting them on the general ledger. And then just taking you through some of the account, their names that were used in the past, and then they renamed the account. It's very important for you also to know, because they will either write discount allowed or a settlement and discount granted. It's the same thing. In some cases, they will use bad debt, or they'll call it credit losses. In some cases, they'll use it interest received or financial revenue. They can either use interest paid, and another name is financial cost, discount received, another name is settlement in discount received. And then it's very important to know the old names and then the new names, because they can use one of them. And it's also very important that when you are done with your general ledger, it's very important that you balance off your general ledger. And then I also want you to look on page 78 to 84 of your accounting didactics. And then you must also go through your NAMCOL module 1 and 2 just to have more idea or more information on this. Now on page, on the pages that I have given you, they have given now a type of transactions when you are doing a general ledger. Like for example, they can tell you capital contribution, and then they are having a table which is very clear. On that table, they will tell you when the transaction is capital contribution, what are the influence. So in the capital contribution transaction, we are having assets, that is of course bank, and it will increase. And then another one, we are having capital, that is owner's equity, and then it's also going to increase. And then if you are doing an influence, the effect, your asset is going to increase, your owner's equity is going to increase, and then your liability is going to decrease. Now students, when you study this table and then you memorize it, it will be very easy for you to know the general ledger, because they have already given you the type of transaction and how you record that on the accounting equation. That was it now for accounting. Best wishes for your exams. You have to go through the topics that I have given. In my email, as it's appearing, it's Gertrude with a small letter H93 @gmail.com.